Hi everyone, today we're going to take a closer look at LACMA's Modern Art Collection, how it was curated, the story behind it, and how it fits into the museum's larger mission. LACMA's Modern Art Collection is a cornerstone of the museum's mission to present a diverse range of artistic perspectives. LACMA is deeply committed to reflecting the city's rich cultural heritage, and it strives to showcase art that represents not only Western traditions, but also a global spectrum of movements, cultures, and identities. A key aspect of LACMA's mission is to connect different cultures and show how they interact with broader global movements. This commitment to diversity can be seen in the Modern Art Collection, which includes notable European works from the early 20th century, spanning movements like the German Expressionism and Abstract Expressionism. These movements were at the forefront of artistic innovation during this time and continue to be highly influential in shaping modern art today. By presenting such works, LACMA provides visitors with an opportunity to explore major 20th century artistic movements that helped reshape the art world. But LACMA's commitment goes beyond simply showcasing art. The museum makes an intentional effort to integrate works from its American and Latin American collections into the modern art displays, reflecting the diversity of artistic expression found across different regions. This inclusion of Latin American artists offers a richer, more nuanced view of the 20th century, shifting away from traditional focuses on European and North American art movements to embrace a more inclusive and global art perspective. LACMA understands the importance of not just showing well-known Western artists, but also highlighting Latin American works connected to larger international art landscape. One of the standout parts of this collection is the Janice and Henry Lazouf collection, a significant body of work that includes pieces by internationally renowned artists like Pablo Picasso and Alberto Giacometti. This inclusion of famous artists allows LACMA to link viewers with some of the most important artistic movements in history, while making these works accessible to the public. Picasso, for example, is widely regarded as one of the most influential artists of the 20th century, and his work at LACMA offers a glimpse into his contributions to modern art. Giacometti's sculptures, too, are key pieces in understanding the evolution of 20th century art, particularly in terms of form and expression. LACMA's dedication to accessibility is another cornerstone of its approach to the modern art collection. It's not just about displaying art, but ensuring that it reaches and engages a wide audience. Through exhibitions, educational programs, and community outreach, LACMA makes modern art more accessible to diverse groups. This not only includes physical access, but also encourages deeper engagement with art through interactive educational initiatives, ensuring that visitors from all backgrounds can learn, explore, and connect with art in meaningful ways. The museum's approach to making modern art inclusive is also reflected in the way it attracts diverse audiences, whether through curated exhibits that focus on underrepresented artists, or through educational programs designed to engage various communities. LACMA ensures that the art displayed has a broad impact. This inclusivity in both presentation and engagement allows LACMA to foster a deeper understanding of various cultural narratives that shape the modern art world. Overall, LACMA's Modern Art Collection serves as a reflection of the museum's broader missions. By presenting a wide array of artistic movements, incorporating works from different cultures, and offering opportunities for diverse audiences to connect with art, the collection not only expands our understanding of art, but also fosters an environment of accessibility and inclusivity. And it invites visitors to explore both artistic achievements of the past and the contemporary global dialogues that continue to shape the art world today, while always staying connected to the city of Los Angeles. Through this collection, LACMA continues to break boundaries, ensuring that its exhibitions not only represent a global nature of art history, but also reflect the very diverse cultural diversity that makes up the city of Los Angeles.
So next I'll be discussing how and why LACMA's collections were acquired. Unlike other major museums, LACMA doesn't have a dedicated acquisition fund. a key fact to understanding how their collections are constituted. Since 1986, LACMA has held an annual Collectors Committee weekend, one of two main ways they fundraise to acquire new works. The main event takes place on Saturday morning when 10 curators pitch artworks through a frank discussion of their value, both historical and financial, their price, and the seller. As Jory Finkel described in the art newspaper, the curators lace their sale pitches with superlatives to highlight each extraordinary work of art and the extraordinary or unique opportunity to acquire it. In recent years, acquisition has focused on acquiring work by women artists, especially those connected to Los Angeles. For instance, in 2018, LACMA acquired Betty Saar, a once overlooked LA-based artist who's now rightfully become a feminist icon, and their first Ruth Asawa, who grew up in LA and settled in San Francisco. Just this past year, preparatory drawings for a 1984 mural by Judy Baca were acquired. The nature of the event means that curators have to curry favor with wealthy patrons. Also in 2018, curator Stefan Little, who pitched a Korean Bodhisattva, cheekily ended with a promise that supporting collectors would, quote, all be reborn. Aside from being humorous, the statement implies that their charitable contributions are the ethical right choice. As of 2024, they have acquired 266 works and raised $52 million in total. The second, more controversial way LACMA raises funds is by deaccessioning works, meaning selling them to acquire new ones. As Christopher Knight wrote for the Los Angeles Times, unlike in Europe where many art museums are government treasure houses and nothing is sold, American museum collections are living organisms. They take shape over time. Though the public may not agree with the value judgments curatorial teams make in deaccessioning certain works, or the ethics of such a process, the goal of filling gaps within museum collections requires sacrifices when funding is hard to come by. One example of a key acquisition made possible by deaccessioning works donated by Bernard and Edith Loon in 1997 was of Jose Clemente Orozco's street corner brick building, Esquina Edificio de Ladrillo, a painting made during his time living in the U.S. from 1927 to 1934, and the year before his 1930 mural at Pomona College in Claremont, right here in Los Angeles County. The mural, titled Prometheus, is the first work of the Mexican mural movement executed in the U.S. The Loons donated 4,000 paintings, drawings, and prints that were valued at $25 million. As of 2009, funds raised through deaccession of that donation have helped LACMA acquire 43 works, spanning colonial, modern, and contemporary Latin American art. Thus, those tough decisions are paying off to make LACMA's collection more representative of Los Angeles' own cultural heritage. Donations make up the majority of LACMA's holdings, so next I'll discuss some major donations that have shaped LACMA's modern art collection. William Preston Harrison was a collector of American art whose donations to LACMA in the 1920s and 30s formed its early collections. He primarily collected works by artists active in France and the United States during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, sketches by well-known artists like Mary Cassatt and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, and paintings by self-proclaimed founder of Cubism, Albert Gleizes, as well as landscapes by F. Child Hassam, Joseph Pennell, Paul Signac, etc. In 2005, advertising executive and former member of LACMA's Modern and Contemporary Art Council expanded those departments' holdings through his donation of his Lives collection. In a 1994 interview with the Los Angeles Times about an earlier donation, Haff said, quote, "These are things the museum should have bought but didn't have the foresight or money to buy. They will fill a lot of gaps." His donations are some of LACMA's only works by iconic artists from the late modern period, that is the 1960s, pop artists like Andy Warhol and Claes Oldenburg, abstract expressionists like Jasper Johns and Frank Stella, and in addition, artists with a strong personal aesthetic like Juan Miro and Yayoi Kusama. In 2007, Janice and Henry Lazarev promised to donate 130 works from their collection, including 20 works by Picasso that spanned nearly 7 decades of his career, from portraits of Dora Maar to his second wife Jacqueline, to a series based on Delacroix, Women of Algiers, which are key Orientalist works, to a few colossal pieces made in old age. Paul Klee and Wassily Kandinsky, who met teaching at the Bauhaus, are represented by 21 watercolors and paintings. Kandinsky's works reflect a shift in his style toward abstraction between 1909 and 1914. Klee's works reflect his trip to Tunisia, his collage-like approach in cutting up and reassembling his compositions, and his interest in children's art. 7 bronzes and 1 painting by Alberto Giacometti, works which reflect his post-war exploration of and personal struggle for the impossible unity of world and ego, as well as numerous other names critical to the Western modernist canon crafted by the discipline of art history, such as Degas, Brancusi, Braque, Ledger, etc., as well as artists who fall outside of it, but are still crucial players in Europe's avant-garde, such as Archipenko. Since 2007, LACMA has acquired more than 19,000 objects and over 120,000 works from ancient times to present. In 2014, Chief Executive of Univision, Jerry Parencio, promised to donate his collection to LACMA after both his death and after the David Geffen galleries are completed. He passed away in 2017, but the building is still in the works. However, his holdings also consist of artists key to the Western modernist canon, Magritte, Cubists like Picasso and Ledger, and Impressionists such as Monet and Degas. These are a few of the works LACMA noted as highlights. Degas' Au Café Concert, La Chanson du Chien from 1875, which epitomizes his experimental approach, his incredible draftsmanship, and his interest in depicting contemporary life. Magritte's Les Liaisons Dangereuses from 1936, an iconic example of his illusionistic games and one that is, quote, an ingenious visual arrangement simultaneously preventing and promoting sexual enticement, as LACMA put it themselves. Fernand Ledger's Femme au Bouquet from 1924, which reflects his continued adaptation of the reductive aesthetic, is another major highlight as well.
Now I will be discussing how the collection has been displayed over time. The modern art collection has experienced a number of changes in regard to both presentation and the sheer quantity of art over the years. Stephanie Barron, a senior curator and department head of the Modern Art Department, has been alongside the museum for over 4 decades, assisting in the installation and presentation of the permanent collection. At the start of her time in 1976, the collection had been limited to around 10,000 square feet on the second floor of the Amancent building. The collection featured mainly Impressionist and Post-Impressionist paintings alongside loans from the Arm & Hammer collection. Barron notes that although works were arranged with some attention to chronology and geography, the collection lacked an overarching theme or narrative. The significant pieces were works by Franz Klein, František Koupa, Fernand Ledger, Pablo Picasso, Jackson Pollock, and Mark Rothko, which are still a part of the collection today. In the 1980s, the collection was moved to a new home. A new building called the Robert O. Anderson Building was opened, in which 2 floors were dedicated to house the permanent collection, along with the ground floor for changing exhibitions. From the 10,000 square feet of the Amancent Building, this new building doubled in size, allowing for 20,000 square feet to be dedicated to the display of the collection. The building's name was later changed to the Art of America's Building. The space was mainly granted to showcase German Expressionism and Abstract Expressionism, along with art that was purchased and granted in the coming decade. Prior to the building's opening, the museum prepared for this shift by acquiring significant pieces of art through donations from collectors and purchases. This included an auction house success of René Magritte's The Treachery of Images, This Is Not a Pipe, in 1978, along with works of de Kooning and Lichtenstein, donated by major collectors. In 2007, the Anderson Building was reworked to hold the Latin American art collection, while the modern art collection was moved back to the Amancent Building, in the plaza level. This new presentation was the largest yet. Over 21,000 square feet were occupied by the art, as the collection had grown significantly from 1999 to 2005 as a result of major donations. As mentioned before, the Janis and Henry Lazaroff collections made a monumental impact on the modern art collection, with an estimated value of over $100 million worth of art being donated. Michael and Dorothy Blankfort also contributed by donating a collection that had accumulated since the 1950s. They were founding members of the museum's Modern Art and Contemporary Art Council, showing significant and continuous commitment to the museum and making an impact on the museum's success. Finally, the most recent, and in our case most relevant, display of the collection was constructed around 4 years ago in 2021. The collection was moved to the top floor of the Broad Contemporary Art Museum, also known as BCAM, where a total of 12 galleries amounting to over 16,000 square feet were created to hold and display the collection. The curators worked alongside architect Frank Gehry and Gehry Partners LLP to design this new presentation of space. The third level of BCAM has a unique quality of abundance of natural light. As natural light can be damaging to artworks, the curators and Gehry had to work to ensure that the light can contribute to the viewer experience without causing harm to the art. An important factor of this presentation is the combination of old and new. The goal was to reimagine how this collection had previously been displayed by incorporating core works with works that had never been seen. Furthermore, works from other departments were mixed into this curation. This included pieces from the Latin American art, and decorative arts and design departments. The audio tours were another new input by the curators, hoping to enhance the experience and shift the narrative. The addition of a soundtrack that plays throughout the galleries, as well as a 30-minute film on modern and contemporary exhibitions organized by LACMA from 1965 to 2020, appealed to the other senses by adding a further audio component that coincides with the visuals. Furthermore, the press release on this new presentation states that there are, quote, interpretive wall texts written to reflect recent scholarship and engage issues such as provenance, colonialism, artistic biographies, and socio-political topics, end quote, to further help engage the audience. The actual galleries are organized into different sections in what they call a, quote, loose chronological order, end quote. They begin on the east side with German Expressionist works in two galleries, one for painting and sculptures, and the other for works on paper from the Robert Gore Rifkin Center for German Expressionist Studies. An adjacent gallery holds space for women artists. The West galleries are dedicated to international artists who worked in Europe, the United States, and Latin America with a focus on surrealism. Large spaces in Jane and Mark Nathanson galleries are dedicated to abstract expressionism. The other galleries include sculptures, paintings, and works on paper from the Lazaroff collection. These span from 19th century and Second World War era French works to paintings and sculptures by Picasso, which are located in one of the two single artist galleries. The other single artist gallery is for Giacometti, to Bauhaus works. The avant-garde has its own gallery featuring artists from Russia, Eastern and Western Europe, and North and South America who participated in the movement. Although the visual components of this new layout somewhat fall into line with what Dr. Elizabeth Rodini describes as the white cube in her essay, A Brief History of the Art Museum, the new exhibition of this collection has expanded from this idea. The combination of visual elements, such as the writing on the wall with the audio components, break away from the modern art museum idea of what Rodini calls a pure experience of the artwork. This exhibition of the collection shows an actualization of the museum's goal and initiative to shift the narrative and explore change and progression. However, there is still work to be done, and this museum has not completely dismantled the bounds of the stereotypical modern art white cube.
And now to go into what kind of story the modern art collection and gallery at LACMA tells. This quote from Stephanie Barron is part of LACMA's hope for audience takeaways of the most current modern art galleries. And for this section, we will focus on the stories that the museum tells through this broad collection. The collection includes many iconic works of art, such as the ones pictured here. The inclusion of these works may be an initial draw to the collection for many visitors, as well as define LACMA's position as a home for modern art. This quote from LACMA CEO Michael Gubbin describes the new possibilities for the collection in the BCAM. When we compare these new possibilities to another well-known modern art museum, MoMA in New York, we can see LACMA's vision for the role that natural light especially plays in art museums. As opposed to Christoph Grunenberg's argument that, quote, the museum space functioned not only against the metropolitan cacophony of New York, but also, and more importantly, against the material world of production and consumption, the contradictions of class society and political conflicts, unquote. LACMA does not display their modern collection and its intersecting works as a space of respite from modernity in the form of the city, but rather embraces the city outside and emphasizes the way that modern art has been shaped by conflict, hierarchies, and forms of identity. As previously discussed in the museum's mission, diversity of work and accessibility are also key to the narrative portrayal of this collection. One of the ways LACMA works to make their modern collection not only accessible but understandable to their visitors is by creating complementary curated audio experiences to go with the new galleries of display, as described by Raia. The soundtrack for the galleries, which LACMA emphasizes the, quote, ever-evolving continuum of modern art. The music has a wide range of genres, time periods, and artists. The inclusion of a soundtrack emphasizes the role that music plays in perception of art as well. LACMA also provides visitors with 5 different audio tours for their modern art collection. These tours provide a multimedia experience for the visitor, incorporating music, artist interviews, performed readings of artist quotes, words from Stephanie Barron, as well as sound effects in some cases. Along with guided directions to the physical space, all of these aspects come together to form a narrative takeaway for the LACMA visitor. Firstly, disruption, the art of German Expressionism. Previously discussed was LACMA's focus on the movement. The narrator of this tour describes LACMA's differentiation from other museums who typically begin modern art in the context of France. It frames the, quote, story of modern art as one of rebellion and struggle, unquote, situating these works in a time of many artists' response to war and conflict. Works that highlight this include Untitled Improvisation No. 3 by Vasily Kandinsky. The tour and wall label describes Kandinsky's comparisons of the swirling lines to the emotion music brings forth, both joyful and foreboding. It is also described as being an important influence for American abstract expressionists, placing it in a chronological narrative with other important works in the LACMA collection. A Portrait of Picasso. In this tour, LACMA aims to provide a perspective on Picasso's works, acknowledging there may be many preconceived notions due to his fame. The tour discusses the development of Picasso's style, describing him as, quote, a rebel, a radical, and very self-confident, unquote. An important work includes Weeping Woman with Handkerchief, showcasing his, quote, explosive creativity, his political passion, his poetic idealism, and his sometimes brutal misogyny are all on view. Departures and Arrivals, Stories of Art Across Boundaries. This tour aims to, quote, invite you into a conversation about displacement and migration in the context of modern art, unquote, with political conflict and wars often inhibiting but also influencing artistic expression. A highlight includes Sleeping Women, Julia by Lionel Feininger, which expresses the struggles that many European artists face. The tour specifically asks the viewer to place themselves in the shoes of these displaced artists, with many of them being honored as, quote, models of creative resilience, unquote. The tour also highlights a lighter tone, that of voluntary migration, with David Hockney's Mulholland Drive, The Road to the Studio. Quote, the light, the landscape, the mix of cultures, all contributed to artists all over the world finding literal and psychic space in California to pursue their work, unquote. Revolution and Rebellion, Political Activism in 20th Century Art. This includes the work of many Latin American political activist artists, including the often complicated relationship of national identity and artistic expression. 2 works that stand out also highlight the collection's connection to Los Angeles. Diego Rivera's Flower Day celebrates Mexico's indigenous peoples. It was purchased by Los Angeles within the year of its creation. Mata's Burn Baby Burn uses machinery and fiery imagery to portray anxieties relating to the Vietnam War. The title is from the cries of protesters during the Watts riots of Los Angeles, taken from the catchphrase of LA radio host Magnificent Montague. Women's work, Mid-Century American Abstraction. An important highlighted work is The Burning Bush by Janet Sobel, who actually created the technique that Jackson Pollock made famous. The tour also notes Helen Frankenthaler's Winter Hunt, as she was influenced by Pollock, but along with her fellow female abstract expressionists, was left out of the, quote, stereotypes of white, masculine, male-dominated American identity, unquote. The narrator says, quote, scholars at this museum and elsewhere have worked hard to correct the omission, unquote. This situates the role that works by women artists play into LACMA's mission for the collection. Through these tours, LACMA often acknowledges that there is not one great narrative of their modern art collection or intersecting departments that can be simply condensed into one message. Nonetheless, they reveal the curator's thoughts on what they consider some of the most important works in the collection that the LACMA visitor can view. Together, these works share common themes of artists that were rebels, whether that be artistically, politically, or socially, as well as resilient in the face of adversity. Through works that both explicitly reference Los Angeles and even those that don't, these tours through the modern art galleries cement a narrative of LACMA as a cultural staple of Southern California and its people.